Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining our Race Today podcast, where this is a 1 hour talk show about racism in the United States, as well as an activist program and platform to eradicate racism across the United States. I'm Dr. Alicia Williams, and I am so excited to have us join today for our conversation that is focused on Black tokenism, a young person's perspective. So with that, I'd like to welcome you and begin with introductions as we engage today's conversation. So first up, I'd like to introduce Gabriel Holder.
Hello to those of you who don't know me. My name is Gabriel. I'm currently a college freshman at a PWI, and I'm studying to get my computer science PhD.
Welcome, Gabe. Next, we have Talia J. Williams.
Hi, I'm Talia. I am a junior at a school in Fairfax County.
Welcome, Talia. Next, we have Talia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Talia Rose Diorio, and I am a junior at a school in Fairfax County.
Thank you. Welcome, Talia. Next, we have Parker.
Hi, people. How are we doing today? My name is Parker Bryant. I'm a sophomore in high school. And yeah.
Nice to have you, Parker. And next, I'd like to hand it over to my co-producer to welcome herself, Lisa Tavallo.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Tavallo. I'm co-producer with Dr. Williams. We met while I was filming a short film about the Freddie Gray uprising. And we decided to start this program after the George Floyd protests.
Welcome, Lisa. And last but not least, we have our moderator for today's conversation, Michelle Tugby. Welcome, and it's all yours, Michelle.
Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to be here today with you all. And I'm just going to start off with our very first question. So our first question is, what does tokenism mean to you? And I have the definition right here. The definition of tokenism is the practice of doing something only to prevent criticism and give the appearance that people are being treated fairly. And a quick example of that would be hiring someone from a minority group just for the looks.
Hey guys, so the first thing that I think of when I think of tokenism, I think one thing that we can all think of is cancel culture. If maybe say a person or a company or a big organization, they say maybe something offensive or bad, and they take a person from a minority group and they use it as kind of like their whole image now to make it seem like they didn't do anything bad, or they just use them. It's just the using of someone from a minority group to make themselves look better. And I know that probably most of us here have seen it, experienced it. And yeah, those are my thoughts on tokenism.
Yeah, I agree. The first thing I thought of when tokenism was brought up, when I was reading the questions, was I was thinking about kind of like Pride Month and big corporations when they put out all these pride flags and shirts out for sale. And then the moment the month is over, it's gone. And they really don't put any effort to like benefit the LGBTQ community when they do these. It's just for their gain and profit. And it leaves people feeling alienated. And maybe if they have LGBTQ workers at their big corporations, they kind of feel like their accomplishments are lessened and they're not seen as human beings and more as a way to make money.
I kind of second that thought. And, you know, when I first thought of tokenism, where my mind immediately went to was repercussions. A lot of the big tech, the big companies nowadays, they go and they try to dodge these repercussions associated with PR scandals by just, you know, taking a person of color and having them be the face, be the voice, and really just trying to like minimize damage control. And, you know, taking that token person, it's just basically using them for their likeness. You know, the whole conversation of diversity and inclusion taking steps towards achieving those, it's good in theory, but, it's all about a balance. It's trying to, mitigate, actually being inclusive, fostering that inclusive and that diverse environment rather than just putting on a personification.
I thought of like tokenism as a more like relationship wise, as like having one person of color in your friend group that you can like use as an example that like you're not racist because you have this one person that you surround yourself with that is so different from you just because of their skin color. And it that really just they just use the person. They don't actually have like a relationship with them. It's just like a card they can hold out that's like, see, I'm not racist or whatever. And that makes the person feel like they're isolated or they're just like an object to the other person.
Yeah, going off of what you said, Talia, that was kind of like the first thought I had when I heard the definition of tokenism. It tends to, in my experiences, be those relationships where like you start to realize, oh, wait, don't use me as your clutch to prove that you're not racist or, your example Black card friend. And then Talia, off of what you said, I also see that during Black History Month, like even in school, it's just like, oh yes, in English, we're gonna read about this amazing Black author, and then we're not gonna talk about this Black author ever again. It's just, you see these almost daily, and sometimes it hurts, it does hurt. And hearing all your thoughts on that, I'm sure we're good to move on to our next question, which is, have you ever had to think that the reason why you got something you deserved was because of your race? If so, would you like to provide an experience too?
I honestly never thought that I didn't like this, that I only got something because of my race, but I've heard people think that. Um, I'm an actress, and so I'm very much involved in like the theater community at my school, and like have been since elementary school. And middle school, I got like the leading role, and I heard a couple of years later that this one girl was like, she only got it because she's Black, and I was like, what? I heard that 2 years later, and like I didn't know that's what she thought about me, but she thought like every role I got was because I was Black, and that was just absurd to me because I thought I deserved it and I worked hard for the role and I did what I was supposed to do.
I'd also, I've kind of had almost the same experience as Talia. So I remember I was so excited to audition for my first short film ever. And on the audition form, you kind of gave them idea of what you wanted to audition for. And I wanted to audition for this very comedic jockey character, and because I thought he was funny, and so I wanted to audition for that. So I went into the audition, and they made me read for this like sassy Black gay character, and I was just disappointed because I've actually been going through this thing a lot where I feel like the only characters that I'm able to gain are like sassy Black characters, those characters who have those really sassy comebacks or the side character. It just really disappointed me, and I just felt like I was only granted that opportunity because that's the only thing they saw me as, and yeah, it just really disappointed me.
Yeah, I can relate to both of you guys. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind is I'm in student leadership. And I don't know whether this is just my personality being like, oh, I don't deserve this, or if it's really like they're just throwing me in there. Because when I look back, it's usually like a lot of not Black people and then just me in the corner. It's like an afterthought. They're like, this looks perfect. And then they're like, oh, wait, we're going to get called out for no inclusivity here. Let's just throw in a girl who's like a skin color that's not white, because I'm pretty light skinned and I'm pretty racially ambiguous. So I feel sometimes that they're like, she's different enough. And that comes up a lot, I think. And I'm very proud of being Black. I love being Black, but I do often find myself being in situations where people are like, you're Black enough. And it's like, all right. And it definitely makes you uncomfortable. But it's definitely double-sided. So I also do theater, and I get put in roles like the sassy Black lady. And it's so uncomfortable sometimes because you feel that you can play any role you want to, and you're often confined into this box that society puts there for you. Like, you can only play this kind of character, or you can only listen to this kind of music. But then when the time comes to use you, they're like, oh, you can get out of this box and just stand next to us. And it's like, no, like, I have all of these intellectual abilities as well. I can sing this song, and I can listen to folk music maybe, because that's so crazy for a Black person, you know? It's just breaking stereotypes and allowing people to grow outside of the mind space that they're put in about Black people.
I really connected with those sentiments, and I feel like today we live in a day and age where a question like this can even be proposed. If we live in a society where we even have to propose this question, I feel like it speaks to where we're at, culturally, because like, if I'm excellent at a specific trade or a specific sport, or, something that I'm really interested in, I shouldn't have to propose the question, well, was I able to be successful in this interview, in this tryout, etc., only because of my skin color, and I feel like that shouldn't be a factor. I feel like we should just be able to focus on the skill set of the individual, rather than, okay, we need to hit a quota with, this this racial quota that we have to meet. So yeah, that's just my thoughts.
Definitely gonna shine more light on what you said about leadership, Talia. I remember the director of student services at my school once sent me a message letting me know that he had nominated me for this leadership position in a county-wide like opportunity. And as much as I thought it was such a great thing, like I loved how Fairfax County was making this committee, my first thought was I the only Black student that tended to shine light on like things that happened in our school, or did I deserve this? It was just a matter of, okay, A, am I the only Black person you know? Or B, what does it mean that you're asking me to do it? Like, does it truly mean that you just could not think of anyone else? And the fact that that was like the first thing that went through my mind really kind of speaks to, again, like the society we live in. Like, it's kind of unacceptable. And I think that was kind of like a segue to our third one, where I want to ask you guys, have you ever had a negative or positive experience from being a Black person in a predominantly white environment?
Yeah, I can start off on that. So I think, to preface what I'm about to say, is I haven't always lived in Fairfax County. My dad is in the military, so we move all around the US a lot. And I've lived in predominantly Black communities before. I've lived in areas that are very, very diverse, because people in the military are like a complete melting pot of different people. So I've been very fortunate to live in that environment. But unfortunately, I would say that it wasn't until I moved to Fairfax County that I became very self-aware of my race. Like, I wasn't colorblind per se. I don't really like saying like, oh, I'm colorblind, like I don't see color. But I was never so self-conscious, maybe, of like, oh, I look so different than everyone else, and everyone has to point out how I talk different and how like have to touch my hair, it was very, very different. And so I have had a lot of experiences here where I'm the only Black person, or even person of color, in a group. Like, I'm the only Black girl in my entire theater like department. So all those roles fall on me. And I'm the only Black person, like not even Black female, like Black person in my entire leadership team. So I kind of feel almost like this burden to like be the Black representation and like speak on behalf of Black people, but that's not my position. That's like not my place. Like, I can never ever speak on behalf of like all Black people, right? But I feel like if I'm not there and showing up, it'll like go south really fast. But it's like, that's a lot to put on one child, for an entire school. So it's really difficult sometimes to be like, no, don't do that, or no, you should definitely do this project. So yeah.
First of all, I just wanted to say that I'm really sorry that you have to feel like you have to be that person, because it's not your obligation at all. And I'm just really sorry that you have to go through that. But I just want to say that within the school, I feel like I go through a lot of positive and negative. I mean, there are a lot of organizations within the school like BSA, Black Student Alliance, or the Equity Coalition that Michelle runs. Okay, Michelle, Miss Equity Coalition. But no, there are a lot of different clubs and organizations that I can go to. But um, also, when it comes to those organizations or clubs or different opportunities that I've been given, I have had to question, do I deserve this or not? Or am I just here to make you guys look pretty? You know what I'm saying? Am I here to make you guys look like you care when you really don't? And also, even with my classmates, I feel like in certain school projects, when we've had to do group projects, especially in history, I actually just experienced this in AP World. And I don't know why they thought I would be perfect for this, but we're learning a lot about the transatlantic slave trade right now. And we have to do a project. And I'm one of the only people in my AP World class. And everybody asked me if I wanted to be in their group. And I kind of thought I was being dramatic at first. And I kind of felt like I was placing my own self in a box. But at the same time I thought about it, I was just like, I've had to experience this so many times with people when we're talking about certain topics within school, and I'm the only one that gets stared at in the class. And it just, yeah, it really disappoints me. So it's some positive, some negative.
Uh, I've been like I've been surrounded by like white people a lot, especially in like elementary school. I've been friends with them and stuff. But I feel like because they're friends with other white people, and then I get invited to like a party and I'm the only like black person there. It's like none of them talk to you. Like you kind of go into the background. And so sometimes it feels like they don't see you or like hear you, or like you try to speak and then they speak over you, and then you try to repeat yourself again and then everyone just like doesn't hear you. So that some of my experiences, I felt like I've been like like spoken over, and like no one is paying attention to me, or like no one knows that I'm there. And it's very emotionally tiring having to try and get heard all the time, and then there's only one person who hears you, and then your idea just gets left. Or I had this one experience with this girl, and I wasn't there to defend myself, and I was in a project with her, a group project, and I kept communicating with her and asking her, how do we do this? When do you want to meet up to make the project and that stuff? And the time came when she did the whole project without telling me and didn't communicate, and then made me look like I was lazy. So I felt like I had to prove myself to the teacher, and I did a very well job, but it was just so aggravating because she didn't talk to me at all, and it made me look bad in front of the teacher when I wasn't even there.
You know, when I was listening to Leah talk, the part when she was talking about how she was going out to like parties and stuff, and she just really felt isolated, that part really resonated with me because going into the my freshman year of college, there's a period of time where a lot of the seniors come together. You know, it's the last big thing before everybody goes to the wind, different, hemispheres of the globe. And it's like a little vacation. They all go to the same town. And I went with a group of people. They were my good friends. And it was a majority Caucasian group, with a couple of people of color within the group. And I just felt all of the people of color were just sort of gravitating towards each other because of what Talia said. We just felt like, there are friends, it's fun, it's nice to get out and have fun with your friends, but there are just some fundamental differences in how we all have fun, how we party, and it kind of made the trip less enjoyable, in a sense. And we went to a place called Corolla in I believe it's North Carolina, and it's kind of out there in the boondocks and the sticks. And us as like African Americans and people of color, we always had to, watch out, keep each other's backs, watch each other's backs. And we were having fun, but we were always cognizant, okay, like if stuff goes south right now, what are we gonna do? Yada yada yada. And are the people that we're in the house with, will they have our backs? And it's just negative stuff like that that we have to worry about subconsciously that really shouldn't be an issue, and so I really felt for Talia when she was talking about being isolated in a group of, predominantly Caucasian individuals. It just struck a chord. So
It's kind of like moments like these that I think, how do we voice these types of concerns to people who can actually have an influence over these experiences? Like, it's like you said, you can be in a room full of people and never feel more alone just because of the color of your skin. And that truly, it hurts. Our next question, is what are your thoughts on organizations, systems, and workplaces hiring chiefs of diversity? Most of the time that happens right after a big scandal. And do you think it's effective or not?
I guess I'll start off. So I talked about this earlier. I talked a lot about cancel culture. Such a dumb thing, but so when you talk about if it's effective or not, it kind of is in a way. And this is what I'll say. A lot of people today are very gullible and they don't want to look truly into what organizations are doing or what they have done. And so it's effective for the organization because people see they're putting at least one Black person in the spotlight or in the limelight for about 2 seconds, and then, or to use the idea of Pride Month, they put pride flags all over the place, give pride merch out for the whole month, and then after that, it's nothing. It's nothing. And people don't want to look past the fact that they're not really helping anything. It's not changing anything. It's only benefiting that organization because people don't want to look past what they've done. And I guess you could say organizations or people can grow out of their past mistakes, but at the end of the day, it still happened, it's still there, and it still hurts. And so, yeah, it's effective for the organization, but for me as a Black person, no, it's not effective for me. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change my experiences. It doesn't change what I've had to go through for the past 16 years. It doesn't change that. I still face the same trauma that I had faced in the past, and it doesn't change anything. It just helps them become more richer, more powerful. It's just effective for them.
yeah, I see what you're saying. Like image wise, I feel like it's just it's effective to like try and improve some like a company's image, but it makes you like ponder the question, okay, if we have to hire like someone to help the company with the diversity issue that it faces right now, why wasn't it diverse before? Why weren't we, um inclusive before, Like it just it's like it makes you raise a question that just doesn't sit well, you know. That's just how I feel about it. Like it shouldn't be an issue to the point where you have to hire someone to improve a company's diversity if the diversity was, was prevalent and was very spread out beforehand. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know because I'd like to think in theory hiring someone to help increase like a diverse culture in a company would be beneficial. But as I was saying about being the only Black person in a group, I don't know, depending on who they hire, if that would be a burden I'd want to put on someone. Like, here is a company with no diversity. It is your job to fix it. I feel like that would be a big burden to put on someone's shoulders. But then there are some companies that I feel should just have like maybe a diverse committee. Like, I read a story about a Black hair company that had an entire leadership board of white men who would have never used their own products. And I was like, this seems strange. I think I would appreciate a board of Black women with different curl textures being able to like discuss hair and how to market it to different types of Black women's hair and, maybe put out, I don't know. But see, that to me is like, that seems to call for some type of diversity, but then it didn't happen. So I don't know, maybe they needed the diversity person we're talking about to come in and being like, guys, come on now. So it's stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know, maybe a committee. I think a committee might work better, but just one singular person to fix everything, I don't know if that would work.
Yeah, what Talia said, that made me think about it differently. I thought of it at first and I was like, after a big scandal, obviously it's just for like image purposes, like, oh, this is what we did in the past is in the past and now we like changed. But I definitely think it does put a big burden on that person. But if they're passionate about it and like passionate about bettering the company, then yeah, of course, hire someone who like really wants to do this. And like, I honestly think, and it also opens up after COVID, especially people losing their jobs and stuff, it helps the person like get back on their feet if they're struggling, trying to make ends meet. I definitely think they should most likely be a person of color as well, because different experiences and they can understand if they're talking to this other person of color and being like, hey, this is what the company's like right now. I know it's like kind of problematic, but I'm here if you need someone to talk to, because they're going into this company with like no diversity at all. And it will definitely help the people who are already in there who have gone through so much trauma.
The first thing that I kind of thought about when I was crafting this question was SCPS's response to just all the events that happened in spring 2020. And I watched a couple of their virtual school board meetings, and you constantly hear them throwing out these words: equity, equality, justice, and all that. And I'm just like, okay, but where's the tangible change that you're making? Like, I'm not seeing any changes. You're talking about it, but where's the action? And I think it wasn't until like August, they started building an equity team of leadership in Fairfax County, which, ranged from any type of staff workers. Like, they have principals, administrators, counselors, teachers, and just assistant principals across the county. And it's just, that's, I guess, a good example of taking everything that maybe you've experienced, maybe good or bad way, and making it actual change, an effort to change. And I love seeing the passion of that team, because whenever I watch them talking at the school board meetings, you actually see them like wanting to get things done. And it's a beautiful thing, really. And then on to our next question is, have you ever felt the need to fill any quotas or activities in clubs, sports, in high school or college?
It looks like Michelle is frozen. But go ahead, y'all, go ahead and engage with that question. And we hope she will join us in a minute. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, so in regards to like quotas, because me personally, I could be wrong, but I haven't really been in a position to the point where I'm like HR and I'm deciding, okay, this person should get this position, or we should like bring this guy on board type of deal. So like, what is it like specifically like referring to in terms of like quotas or anything like that?
So I think in general for that question, have you ever experienced, what have you experienced in regards to race? This can range from hiring to answering questions in class. So sometimes, for example, in employment, there are organizations that indicate, we want to hire this number of people of color. And so they're trying to meet a quota or a goal. And that feels some kind of way. You, again, to submit to much of what y'all have already raised, like, why am I here because I earned it? Or am I here to meet some, tick mark in terms of goals? And then I think in the classroom, have there been situations where, you have been, you've experienced where you had the answer, you were raising your hand, but instead they called on someone else who was not a person of color. Sorry, Michelle, handing it back over to you, but I know you dropped off for a second. Go ahead.
No worries. You said everything that needed to be said. You guys can go on and start answering.
Yeah, well, personally, I feel like these quotas, it's a touchy subject because these quotas, they're good because we want to, have people that are a part of an organization feel like they have people they can relate to. In addition, we also don't want to gaslight the, people of color that, these jobs are looking to appeal towards, because then we have ourselves asking the question, okay, well, was it really me and my skill set that earned this, or was it the fact that they need to meet a quota? So it's like, it's really a fine line and a touchy subject to kind of handle, because on one end of the spectrum, it's good that, we're trying to increase diversity. On the other end of the spectrum, it's like, we still want to value these people for what they have to bring to the table. So it's like it's hard stuff.
Yeah, I agree. The first quota that I could think of was at my school, all the things we're trying to do to show that we've changed since the killing of George Floyd, because I think that was kind of the spark that set Fairfax County to start showing that they've changed and that they're trying to make an active mark in our lives regarding racial and equity work at my school. But it has all been very fast, and it has all been, I think, with very little care and thought about how to go forward with it. So in this school year alone, my school has started an African American history club, and it has started an African American history class, and it has started like a learning portion of class dedicated to like this sort of conversation based thing. Every 3 days, it's every 3 class periods. And a lot of students are very sick and tired of it, which makes me sad because I enjoy having conversations like the one that we're having right now, but it never ends up happening because everyone's kind of like, I could be doing my homework right now, but this is the 3rd time this week I've had to be sat down and talked about this. And it's like, no, we're going too fast about this. And you're just trying to fill in boxes to like write home to HR and be like, we did it, we created another class, and oh, we have another club. And it's like, no, please stop, it's okay, slow down. So yeah, that's the first thing I thought of.
When like quotas by like answering questions in class, I guess the first thought is like this hasn't happened to me, but like I was like imagining maybe like the teacher was talking about like slavery or something and like went towards the Black kid to talk about it when like the kid wasn't there or like doesn't know much, like they're learning about it as much as like everyone else is. That's what I thought of. It hasn't happened to me, but I've heard people like teachers have gone and like ask them to like expand about this subject even though they don't know much about it because they're just a kid. But also I had this experience where my teacher just wouldn't let me answer questions for no reason. I was a very smart kid, but she just never gave me the opportunity to. So I think there was some like biases in her like head about like Black kids being like dumb or something, and she just never gave me the opportunity to share.
I'll just talk about something quick, something I experienced about a week or two ago. Decided to go to the Young Democrats meeting. I don't I don't resign with Democrats. I don't consider myself one, but Democrats are the people who I think align with my beliefs the most. So I decided to go because my friend invited me. And we were talking about some very sensitive topics that I didn't expect. And there were a lot of racial topics that were going on. And it just seemed like every time I tried to speak, I would get cut off. And it got me really mad. And then as it kept going, I started to notice that I was the only Black person within the club. It was about 15 people there. I was the one Black male, and the rest were just white females. And when I noticed that, I was like, oh, I see what's going on. You brought me here for this. You brought me here for this reason. And so for the rest of the meeting, I just sat there in silence. So I was like, well, you brought me here for this meeting to speak on issues that then I didn't even get to speak on it because I kept getting interrupted. So that was just something I had experienced a couple of weeks ago.
And what's kind of hurtful about that is I know that so many others have had similar experiences where you're brought into a room to voice your opinion on something because of the color of your skin. And from that, I kind of want to bring up question 7, which is, do you believe that being the token Black person can bring forth a level of competitive edge? And what I kind of thought of was I'm a swimmer, and I guess kind of coming off of the last question too, I'm the only one who comes to a certain practices that is the only Black person or person of color there, which I guess I play a predominantly white sport, and that's perfectly fine, but it can be kind of hurtful when, you know, we have these little Zoom meetings. It's just like, oh yes, this is what's going on in society. Oh, Michelle, what are your thoughts on that? And it's just like, really? And I think the first thing I thought of when I wrote question 7 was things that I've done in school. And I think when you're one of 2 people in like maybe a club or something, and like a leadership position is up, and let's say it's, for example, Black Student Union, and you're up against, you know, maybe fellow Black people, do you think that gunning for that position, knowing that it's in a predominantly Black organization, do you think it brings forth a different type of competition if it was, let's say, a predominantly white organization?
One.
You can go first, I'm sorry.
No. You can go.
Okay. This question made me think about like Hollywood and how they have like Zendaya or Amanda Steinberg. They're so good, but they're only one color of the spectrum, but they have gotten so far because they are Black, but like they're like a palatable Black. It gave them edge to get so far in Hollywood, while they're like other Black girls and kids were like trying to get the same opportunities they have, but they're darker. And same with like in tennis, like Serena and Venus, they're like, there's more Black players in tennis, but they are like so good, but they had to be so good at it, like amazing at it, that they had to get so far. I feel like to be Black in like so many different like areas, you have to be almost perfect at everything. You can't mess up. If you mess up, you're like getting bashed for doing something so slight. And like I feel like in Hollywood there needs to be more of like more shades, because I feel like there's just 2 different shades right now, while there's like so many different shades and mixes and stuff.
Yeah, going off of what Talia just said, I mean, I was just having a conversation with someone about this, like yesterday, about colorism in Hollywood. I was going on a whole rant about it because I was so mad that women like Lupita Nyong'o are like only play very specific roles. And then women like Zendaya are allowed to have a much larger range of characters because she's lighter and it's more palatable to have like a light-skinned female role. And I was talking about like the role feminism plays in like the perception of light-skinned blackness is like softer and more like perfect, and then like dark skin is seen as like masculine, and like you see people saying mean hurtful things about like Megan Thee Stallion for being like dark skinned and stuff. So yeah, it's stuff like that that makes me sad that there's like inner turmoil in the Black community based off of colorism, when there needs to be a sense of community and not this kind of like staircase treatment. But it can be frustrating when you're put at like different levels of your own brothers and sisters. You know, you want there to be a lack of competition in that sector. But then when we're talking about tokenism in a majority white environment, it definitely does feel like, ooh, am I getting this because they have a lack of choice in who they're picking to be the face of Black people in this environment? So like my school did a town hall and I got asked to be like the person. So it was like white kids talking about like how race is used as joke. It's like, oh, it's just a joke here. And it was like people saying how they seen it. So like being the person watching it happen to the victim. And I guess I was kind of there to be the person that like actually experienced it. And I was like, oh, you just brought me to the panel to be the person and be like, racism is bad. And then I could like exit out of the Zoom call. So it can be frustrating, but you can see just by talking about it that it kind of comes from all sides. And you're like, come on, man, I didn't want this to happen. We're supposed to not have to fight with your own family about this sort of thing. You want to be able to walk into a room in an interview, if you're like an actress, and be like, I am coming in here on merit alone, and the texture of my skin color, or like the way my nose looks, should not play into like the characters I'm allowed to portray on the big screen. So yeah, it's sad.
You know, when I first read this question, I thought of being like the token Black friend in relation to giving a competitive edge versus like other people of different races vying for, you know, the same position or something like that. So originally where my mind went to was this fall when we were doing rushing for fraternities and, you know, pledging and what have you. It was very interesting how, you know, me and a group, there's a specific residence hall on my campus, and it's made strictly for, you know, people of color and, you know, specifically African Americans. And, you know, a lot of the Caucasian frats congregated around this African American residence hall because they were trying to, you know, find some of the you know, African Americans to be a part of the fraternity. And I was talking to, you know, a couple of the recruiters, and they were like, yeah, like, you know, rushing and pledging, it's a big commitment, but, you know, don't worry about it, you'll definitely get a bid. And it's like, wait a second, like, what do you mean by that? Like, why me specifically, why am I automatically here, and why will I get a bid? Is it just because of my race? Yada yada yada. And it was interesting because also during this recruitment process, you were also seeing some of that colorism that we were just talking about. They were kind of marketing harder to specific individuals than others. And it's like, okay, like just based on their color, do you think that they're going to fit with the values of your fraternity more? Which I feel like is just very messed up. And it was just interesting. That's where my mind immediately went to when I heard of, you know, being a token Black person. But yeah.
Just something quick. Actually, Talia said the exact thing that I was going to say, but I just feel like to go on to what she said, I just feel like especially Hollywood, I feel like they just need to give, especially darker skinned women, they have ample opportunity to give so much opportunity to new and different shades of women. And I just feel like they don't take that chance. And I feel like especially Black women feel obligated to have competition with other Black women because they know that they're usually only going to be like two main Black stars at the top. And so many Black women, whether it's within theater, in school, no matter what, it's just Black women always feel obligated to have to be perfect. And you don't have to be perfect because nobody is perfect. And it's just disappointing. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to like chime in again, but this reminded me of how Hollywood is taking old movie roles and then recasting them again with Black people as leads. So they're doing that with Ariel, they're doing it with Tinkerbell, and it kind of feels half tried to me. They're like, oh no, we don't really want to write a whole new movie with like Black people and like develop their characters. So we're just going to take already developed characters that have been sitting back here for 50 years and just cast a Black person in the role. It'll be fine. It's like, no, you need to take the time to like, it's kind of like tokenism because they really just don't want to put in the effort to like create like deep meaningful characters that we can like hold on to and like cherish. And then they're like, here you go. Like they even did it in Princess and the Frog. They like wholly marketed like, here's your first Black princess, and then she's a frog the entire movie. It's like, no, we wanted a movie with a Black princess. And so yeah, it's stuff like that that makes me so mad.
I am just loving this discussion so much, guys. Ugh. Our next question, we combine two questions. The first part is, have you ever been the token Black friend in a group? And do you think it has an effect on the friendship/friend group? And also take into consideration being the informational crutch in that friendship, if you have been in a friend group that's like predominantly white. Like, are you constantly being used like, oh, you're Black? Tell us about what's going on in the news. Like, no, go read, go inform yourself.
I actually wanted to talk about this earlier, but I remember they had these questions. I actually just went through this. So as you can see, I have like bigger hair. I don't have like shorter hair. And I had a friend ask me about do-rags and bonnets, which was really, really strange to me. So I was just very confused. I was like, why would you assume that I would have information on how to, because I actually don't know how to put on a do-rag. And they asked me about it and I was like, no, I have no information about this. And they were like, oh, really? So I feel like definitely talking about being like the informational person within the friend group. I feel like I've gone through that a lot, and I feel like a lot of us have. And I feel like it's very tiring always having to be that one person who has to talk about what's going on in the news or talk about how I feel about because I remember especially during when George Floyd had just got murdered. I remember that a lot of people were coming to me asking me how I felt, and personally, I didn't want to talk about it because I was scared. I was hurt. It was just all a big shock to me. So it gets tiring having to be the person that always has to inform, when I think we should be trying to push people towards educating themselves.
I definitely what you said about back when George Floyd died, that no one gave us the opportunity to like mourn him and like process it. They just started like sharks. They started coming towards us. Hey, what do you think about this? Hey, how can I get connected with this? Instead of just Googling it, they went to us. And honestly, that whole summer of 2020 was so emotionally like tiring and like draining that like I still haven't fully processed it. And so I've kind of separated myself from like the news and everything because I just can't handle any more of it. Um, and I think like being the informational friend, it's so emotionally tiring. Like I said, also going back to like stereotypes for Black women, especially being like the token friend, like I felt like I've just been used as like the maternal friend or like the therapist friend, that they just go to me for advice and they're like, okay, I won't talk to you for like 3 months and then I'll FaceTime you randomly for more advice. So I'm not getting anything out of it. They're just using me. And all of like that is so tiring. Like, it's like you're fighting with yourself. You're like, should I end the relationship and just stop talking to them? I don't want to be mean, because then they'll be like, oh, she was so, like, just feeding into all these stereotypes. Like, she was so aggressive and all that stuff. It's just so, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad I'm not the only one who feels this way. Like everything Talia has said in this question, and Parker as well. Like when I was talking about how being in a predominantly white environment and you being the only one in that group, you feel this burden to like represent. And I feel that during the George Floyd protests, we were all put in that position to kind of be this face to like talk to people. We were like that trope in movies with like the wise old grandmother, and like, I am so wise and knowledgeable, let me tell you all about. And so yeah, I think the main problem when it comes to predominantly white environments asking you questions is that you end up being their one source of knowledge, and they don't take the time to educate themselves further outside. Like if they'd read a book or watched a movie, or like it got some sort of outside knowledge and they were coming to have a conversation about it, but not to like me be the only person to talk about it, you know? Like, oh, I was listening to this podcast and they brought up this term called colorism, and I was wondering if you wanted to have a conversation about it. I would be overjoyed to talk about it, because I personally believe that conversations are the best way to like better the world. It's like they will never learn if they don't talk about it. But at the same time, don't let me be the only person you talk about it with. And don't let me be the only person's word that you like take. They'll be like, oh, well, my Black friend said, well, no, you need to be able to accept that everyone has a different definition of this thing, or they have a different opinion about this. So if this one Black friend says that they can touch Black hair, okay, that's their hair. If I say I don't like you to touch my hair, please don't touch my hair. So it's stuff like that, being the only person in a group of white people. They're like, what? What do you mean I can't touch your hair? Like, it kind of makes me feel like I'm a petting zoo, and I don't appreciate it. So it's stuff like that that never happened before I lived here. Like no one would just come up to me and touch my hair before. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, stop touching my hair. It's so weird.
Yeah, no, I definitely resonate with what you said about like colorism, and how like certain things, certain topics, if some of my friends who are uneducated actually come to me and inquire about, I'd be happy to teach, because ultimately all it's about is just a spreading of culture. Like, I'd be glad to openly welcome you into my culture. I know, Parker, you were talking about, how the person was asking about the do-rag and stuff like that. It can be very like annoying to have to deal with, but also you have to analyze the intentions behind questions like that. Some people do have malintentions when you open yourself up and open your culture up. Some people like to make fun of that stuff, and I just hate to see it, and as far as the whole informational aspect of it, it's tough, because people always come and they like rely on their African American friends to be the end all be all. That's not the case. Sometimes a person who's not African American might have more information on a topic than I do. That doesn't make me more or less African American, but it's all about the people you talk to and who you align yourself with, and their intentions of wanting to experience African American culture. And, that's why it's really important of who you align yourself with, to be a positive influence on you as an African American. And it's important that they're good influences on their other non-African American friends. So it's all about finding those good people in your life.
Absolutely. And kind of going off of what you just said, Gabe, making sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who they'll understand your experiences. Like it's not just one particular kind of group that you're surrounding yourself with. You know, you're having those conversations, you're surrounding yourself with a diverse group of people. And I think that comes to play with like the small things in your life, that your everyday actions will kind of be impacted by who you surround yourself with. And with that, we're going to go on to our last question, which is, if we are considered the token Black person, what does allyship look like? If they see us as being tokenized, how can they be allies? It's kind of a thinker question, so I'll give you guys some time. But I can definitely kind of start with this one. I try to make myself as approachable as possible for conversations like these. One thing that I'm really passionate about and big on educating people on are preventing stereotypes. I think that there, specifically with Black women, there are so many stereotypes out there. Like, I cannot even tell you the amount of times that either A, I have been called or are terrified of doing things that will lead to me being called the loud, angry Black woman or the aggressive Black woman. And when I have people come up to me and say, hey, I said this earlier, but I feel like it might have offended you. Like, I'm not going to yell at you. Like, I'm going to say, yeah, it did. And here's why. And also, here are resources that will lead to you having a better understanding as to why you shouldn't say this or you shouldn't do this. And I think just wanting to stay educated and aware, and maybe even, you know, investing in, I don't know, projects around your community that prevent certain things is an example of how to be an ally.
I really like what you said, because I feel like stereotypes are huge. Like, it's insane, especially being in a predominantly white environment. The amount of times I'll just walk and I'll get stereotyped, and it's not even by what somebody says, but how they look at me. The nonverbal communication that I just receive from a person is insane, you know, and being an ally is really coming in to relationships without any preconceived notions as to, okay, he's an African American, he dresses X, Y, and Z way, he's going to act X, Y, and Z way. It's getting rid of all those, you know, notions in which you truly become an ally. I feel like that's a huge thing for me. It's just no stereotypes. And I feel like it goes both ways, you know, you don't stereotype me, I'm not going to stereotype you. And it's just a functioning relationship that really helps breed these good allyship relationships and friendships. So yeah, that's my big thing.
Yeah, these are all really good ideas. I love hearing about how people want to create and foster an environment to create change. And as I said before, I truly believe that conversations like the one we're just having is the best way to create and foster an environment of equity and inclusion. So I always try and open the conversation at school. I'm like, what do you guys think about this? And oh, so you want to talk about this? So I always try and just make it as stress less as possible. I try and make not make it a joke, but definitely make the situation as light as possible. So when talking about, for example, at school, we had this lesson that did not float well with the students. It was about microaggressions, but the examples that they were giving were like strangely not topical, and they like gave out a yes or no questionnaire, and all the students were like, this isn't a topic with yes or no's, because microaggressions are just such a broad topic that you can't answer it with a yes or no. So it was kind of like getting a lot of buzz at school. And so a group of my friends were just laughing about how like strange it was to like try and answer yes or no to these questions. And we were just like, oh, so what would we do to fix it? What kind of questions would we ask? What do we consider a microaggression? And we actually learned a lot about each other and the things that we considered to be microaggressions. And that ended up being a way better lesson than the questionnaire, was just talking about the things we've experienced as a friend group. And I walked away being like, wow, we should have tried that first. So it was just, but not making it super tense either. Like, oh, so you think that's a microaggression? Oh, okay. You know, that's not really the best way to foster conversation is like judging people on the questions that they ask, because then they'll never ask questions and then they'll keep their narrow mind view. And we don't want that. We want them to be able to grow. And then once they have grown, be able to say, this is how I once thought, and this is how I've grown out of that like space of thought. So yeah.
Uh, yeah, so everything that's been said, it's really, really good stuff. I love what everyone's saying, but what I will say, I think for me personally, I think the best way to be an ally is just to listen. I feel like one thing that I've gone through, and I feel like a lot of people have gone through, is just, especially when people ask you about certain questions when it comes to different topics like we're talking about today, don't ask me about it. And as I'm trying to tell you, interrupt me or tell me that I'm wrong. Just be a good listener. And it doesn't even just have to be when it comes to like race. It could be anything. I feel like people are really struggling today with listening to others and listening to how other people feel about certain topics, especially when that person is experiencing it, especially when that person is going through it. Just listen to what they have to say instead of maybe putting the blame on them or interrupting them or trying to make yourself right. Just be a listener. And when it comes to uh, Gabriel talked about stereotypes. When it comes to stereotypes, I feel like we I don't want to say don't see color, but when you approach me, understand that I am Black, but put aside all the different stereotypes that you have about Black people. I'm Black. I've obviously gone through a lot of trauma, and you need to understand that certain questions you ask me or certain things that you say to me, you're gonna have to hold off on because it might be offensive. But also remember that I'm not a thug, I'm not a gangster, and certain stereotypes are just not okay. And maybe people don't know that. And so the best way to do that is to listen and to understand that I'm not comfortable with this.
Yeah, Parker, what about what you said about like listening? That was literally what I was gonna say. But also like an ally, if you like see someone that is like you feel like is being tokenized, maybe like take them aside and just talk to them because they probably feel like they're not being heard at all or seen. So if you just feel like someone is being left out or like tokenized, just have a conversation with them and actually listen and like interact with them. You're not trying to like benefit or anything, just you're trying to help the person feel like a person. And about like what's like stereotypes, I feel like a lot of those they were built against us. But like we as like a world and stuff, we should break those down, but we shouldn't really escape them either because that's just us. If that is like who you are, then it's who you are. But it's just the stereotypes, the people who have like made those against you are like demonizing it. But like you can still be Black and loud. That just shows that you're excited about a lot of stuff and like volume helps it. Or if you're like not aggressive, but like you get passionate about a lot of stuff. And I think like with like hoodies and stuff like that's a thug. No, they're just cold. What are you talking about? Like all that stuff, we just should break those down because some people like walking around with do-rags and stuff, it's just hair protection. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Thank you guys so much. This was amazing. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Lisa.
Thank you so much for offering your insight. It was really amazing to hear the youth perspective. And on behalf of the producers, we really appreciate the time you took to share your experiences and your perspective. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so much. I
you.
really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
It was so great meeting you all.
You too. Take care.